Good evening and hello, everybody. This is the last reading of this year's 2024 Woodstock Mayapple Writers Retreat. Just a minute or two of introduction for those who don't know. We began as the Rust Belt Rutgers Writers Retreat in Saginaw, Michigan, where Rutgers came from, in 2003. We moved to Woodstock in 2012 after I moved here. And during COVID, we went online as a Zoom retreat. And then in 2022, we became a hybrid retreat, as it was this year. Participants have come from as far away as St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, California, Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Chicago, as well as Western and Southern Tier New York State and the Hudson Valley. So we're getting to be pretty almost international. Our first reading this evening is Elizabeth Caplun, who is new with us this year. She has lived in 4 countries and on 2 continents before settling in Bishop, California, a small town on the east side of the Sierra Nevada. Recently retired, she devotes her time to writing, heading the High Desert Musar Circle, which is a Jewish ethics study field, hiking and tending her garden. Her writing weaves memories and stories of displacement with a yearning for a place called home. And I'm going to highlight her. I should have highlighted me, but that's all right.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Judy. And I'm very touched that I have 3 friends here in the audience. They all know my house. They all know Bishop. So it's very nice for me to be having them in the audience. I'm going to read a few poems that I've been workshopping with Nancy and Helen in the past few days. It will be all part of a chapbook manuscript, I hope. And there is a love story in that manuscript, actually almost 2 love stories, one for the landscape, and then there's a romantic love story with maybe a pathetic ending, but I'm going to leave that for another time. So here's the first poem. Here I am. I arrived with a question. Where do I belong? I wandered, left, came back at sunset, wandered again, this time across Payahunadu, the land of flowing water, the Owens Valley, now a desert perched high east of the Sierra Nevada, a land that searches its beginning, growing season after growing season, plunging roots deeper and deeper to find precious moisture. I settled where the Numu live and have lived since immemorial times, long before my ancestors of all wanderers, started the trek across the desert. I made my home at the edge of town where asphalt meets dirt. There is a field behind my house. Water is near, and so are trees, old cottonwoods writing words with the branches in mysterious calligraphy. I'm a transplant, adapting. I share my backyard with skunks and gophers. Red-tailed hawk watch from above. Ravens argue loudly at a distance. At night, cats venture out, deer saunter. The field is theirs, but it sustains me. Can I belong here? I wonder sometimes what would happen if I moved up a canyon or deep in a city. No, I'll stay and learn to talk with the skunks and the deer, the hawks and the ravens. Going back in time, the end of childhood, the end of childhood. When my mother passed, my childhood passed with her. In truth, I had stopped feeling the warmth of her love for some time. The disease, it seemed, had robbed me from my mother months before her heart stopped. She could not see me in the present. I, her daughter, belonged to her past. She had already turned her gaze towards the moment when she would step away from pain, abandoning pretense of keeping body and mind together, free at least to breathe her last breath untroubled. I had become nobody's child, and yet I'm a 10-year-old proudly sitting by her mother. We are driving through Edam, Volendam, Marken, laughing at windmills, top down, our first trip in her Renault convertible. We are on our way to Amsterdam. We talk about cheese, matches, rijstaffels. How many towns have we visited together over the years? She loved cars, traded the Renault for an Alfa Romeo, then a Saab, until she traded car rides for train rides, en route for La Rochelle, our last trip together. She had planned it all, the train, her victory over her diminished body. I'm helping her up the stairs, holding her hand. She stops often, but keep her back straight. We talk about the Old Arbor, the Ile of Ré, restaurants and hair salons. I'm her eyes and ears, bring the town to her when her body gives up. Now she reclines on the couch. Reality loses its grip. Where are you? For the first time, there is no, I'm here. No, come with me. Shadows float around us and time falters. One moment stretches into another. Words have abandoned us. We are suspended between hours. I'm a child again, holding her mother's hand. She's already left me behind. Just dreams. Mommy, puppy, pony. There was mommy at the center of everything, dreams of puppies and no ponies, except on rare occasions. This was my world. It's the Thursday afternoon. I'm in my school uniform, blue pleated skirt and knee-high socks, munching on bread and chocolate, a well-fed, well-behaved child waiting for mom to pick her up. There were car rides, plane rides, train rides, border crossings, and strange-sounding foods, sweet tasting mountain air, and boring dinners, pouting until time to go to the zoo and dream about lions, tigers, gorillas, with all the plush animals that populated my bed in a circle around my pillow, until one day mommy gave them all away to the Spanish maid who just had a baby. You know, you're a big girl now. Am I not mommy's little girl, her only one, no siblings, dad gone AWOL a continent away, no aunt, no uncles, no cousins, all murdered in the bowels of history, no family pictures to laugh at, no name to mispronounce, no rambunctious reunions of quarreling siblings, just dreams of puppies and ponies and mommy at the center of everything. AWOL. You never inquired about me. It did not matter to you whether I heard about you, knew anything about you, cried myself to sleep, or laughed you out of my dreams, whether I felt a void, whether others felt that void. No prayers of mine stirred your heart, no aching, no cursing, no denial, no tantrum reached you on the distant promenade where you parade with your new family, the image of serenity, drinking from an open coconut in the picture-perfect setting of Ipanema. As I stand on another shore, dumbstruck, the news had reached me that you died. Judy, how am I doing on time?
One more would certainly be all right.
Okay. What do living do? It's a cento, a quasi-cento after Mary Howe's poem of the same name. The garden is full of weeds, and I'm staring at my phone. News stink up the air. The living piles up in the basements. Open wounds waiting for a doctor who chose life and fled. It's winter again. Cloud smell of rain. Rain has come finally. In the spring, forgetful flowers will bloom. This is the everybody we speak of every day, how to make sense of it. For weeks now, I've been thinking, what is the living supposed to do? And yesterday, hurrying to walk the dog on a muddy trail before dark, I slipped, mud splashed on my backside. I hobbled back, cursing the rain. I thought of it again and again later while standing in the garden. This is it, going inside where it's warm. What is it that I yearn for? What is it that I give up? We want the spring to come and the winter to pass, don't we? We want whoever to call or not call, a message, a kiss. We want more and then more of it. But there are moments walking when I catch a glimpse of a bald eagle in a cottonwood tree, say by the pond where they winter, and I'm gripped by a cherishing so deep for my own blowing hair, chapped face, and unbuttoned coat that tears well up. I am living, I remember.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Our next reader, Joyce Kessel, is co-editor of Earth's Daughters Writing Collective and a 12-year or so attendee of this retreat. Her collection, Saints of Sacred Madness, a catechism of poems, was published in 2021 by Atmosphere Press. And her earlier chapbooks include Secret Lives, Describing the Dark, and Classroom Quixote. Before enjoying retirement, she taught writing and literature for 42 years at the Villa Maria College in Buffalo, where she developed the creative writing program. And she is grateful not to deal with students using AI, which we entirely understand. Joyce. You need to unmute. Oh, hold on. I got to get the right person. Here we go.
Okay. It's been a wonderful week with Bob and Judy and Kathy. And actually, I really needed this week. And so what I'm going to read is mostly what's been written in the last week or two. So you're going to find dogs and baseball and family and places in this set. This one I was reading because of Allison. Whatever Lola wants. 2 doors down, 83 pounds of fur and muscle are attuned to my comings and goings by the rise of our garage doors. She has me trained, waits at our usual spot for my handful of treats. So today, in the heat, she has found the one bit of shade under our fledgling red maple, and looks over to me, say, "Hey, meet me over here." I obey the urging of this Bernese beast, gentle as most big dogs are. This is Dad's version of Cinderella. It is never clear in the fairy tale what happened to Dad when the evil stepmother moved in. Did he become an ostrich, head in the sand, butt sticking up, get locked in the cellar with the poisoned apples, go on a business trip, never to return? The story doesn't call him evil for abandoning his child. He was erased by his daughter's broom. He might have turned up at a cheap hotel in Vegas, wandered the cells of Alcatraz, scammed people with bitcoins, a homeless tramp selling apples on the street. Or he could have been a Benedictine monk, confessing all his sins. Taking sides. My adopted families are huge Buffalo Bills fans. A religious fervor more intense than mass. The sacraments of game time rituals, beer, wings, chips and dip, or chili. Monday morning quarterbacks hold on to the glow of wins, curse the lost opportunities, wash our lucky shirts and socks. Many of my circle of friends, most of them poets, aren't sports fans at all, don't pretend knowledge of any sport or its idols, bemused by our devotion. I live in both worlds and marvel at the poetry and movement, the grace of game's pauses, the drama of anticipation, the joy of having a poem hit it out of the park. Fanatic. I've always rooted for underdogs, and at 7 years old, Bill Mazeroski's home run that beat the powerful Yankees changed my life. I fell in love with Pittsburgh and baseball. I saved up enough money to buy my first baseball glove, broke it in, and then slept with it. I studied the hieroglyphics of scorekeeping more than any school subject. I was a very good student. Watching weekend day games on a black and white TV, practicing for games I could see in person. I begged my mother to take notes of every batter in the 1964 World Series till I raced home from school. To my despair, the only player she could keep track of was Lou Brock, famous for stealing second because they shared a birthday. Eventually, life made me a casual fan. Those cherished store cards have been tossed away. The sight of the green grass and dirt infield, the white bases, the crack of the bat still make my heart swell. I can almost feel the lump my mitt made in my bed. We stumble. My mom counted a rosary of scars from falls and surgeries. I wasn't a clumsy kid, but now I tally my own falls, kissing the concrete, tumbling down stairs, tripping on asphalt, slipping in mud, sliding on ice, pratfalling on tiles. Glad my head can take the impact as my knees creak and my balance becomes a risk. I didn't know I could write this poem, and I waited for years to write it. And so I'm still getting used to reading it. Malignancy. When my mother was diagnosed, she wasn't old, just older. The surgeon decided she didn't need her breasts anymore. She was acquiescent. I raged. Shame and loss hung over her. Shoulders always hunched. Years later, when my love's biopsy showed cancer in one breast and pre-cancer in the other, she opted for the double and weeks of chemotherapy. Cancer plays with her genetics, hopscotching to most of her paternal family, aunt, cousins, uncle. Her sister ignored genetics, family history, and Western medicine. It couldn't happen to her. We had to tell her surgeon about the family's genetics as cancer struck her breasts and ovaries and settled in her brain. Toward the end, she still bought prescriptions and hid them, even though they might have fought it. When my cancer was discovered, I almost expected it. I registered the loss, but did not inherit my mother's shame. Afterward, they remarked how small it was, a lumpectomy that distorted my left, just requiring radiation, a more targeted poison. I want to thank my brother for this one. It's, well, the poem will tell you. August, County Fair. It's the Erie County Fair. As a kid, the county fair was summer's reward, ears attuned to the arrival of the fair train. Earlier years, it was our fair, the Hamburg Fair. As the parade went through our village streets, we'd hop on our bikes and follow the elephants. The colors and sounds, screams from the rides, the lure of aromas from the food stands, the smell of the animal barns, even the dust was exotic. The barkers drew us to games with promises of huge prizes that rarely materialized, though it seemed half the kids went home with a goldfish. My brother thanked the ladies in the most boring education building for giving him peanut butter cookies. We both swore to Mom we'd only buy food from local vendors, preferably the Methodist Church, and forswear the rides. Sorry, Mom. The fair meant the end of summer and the beginning of school. After my childhood in August as an instructor, the return to the sweaty classroom was dreaded by me. Ritual. My evening rabbit bounds from the corner, pauses, turns, looks at me, scrambles up the rocks and behind the row of pine trees. Unseen all day, until then, and then again. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Helen Ruggieri is a retired professor of writing. She has several books of poetry. The latest, The Kingdom Where No One Keeps Time, from Mayapple Press. Is that really your most recent?
No.
Well, you didn't send me an up-to-date bio. She has an
The
up-to-date.
Sapphires.
She has a book of haiku and essays about nature called Camping in the Galaxy from Wood Thrush Books, and she lives in Olean, New York. And I am going to put you on.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yep.
I like to start with a couple of haiku, mainly because I love them. And they give you a quick picture. I'm going to my daughter's, and she lives by the ocean. So this is where I wrote those last year. The sea wants to sing, but the sand in her throat makes her growl. The sea loves me, See how it rushes in to kiss my toes. I have one that's sort of a downer. It's a COVID haiku. If I sneeze, there's no one to bless me. Well, after this is the Sapphires, which is the next to the last book. And it has two poems in it. They're kind of a set, Wanting and Getting. I wanted more, all of it. I wanted the mailman, the meter reader, the gas man, all of them. You child connected. I wanted bedlam and logic in the same house. I wanted to name it something different, something catchy, something a contralto might sing, husky, down home. I wanted to play the spoons and juggle, to be good at pool, marbles, jacks, mumbledy-peg. I wanted to shoot straight, face men down on a dusty street, and play "Oh Dem Golden Slippers" behind the batwing doors. I wanted to ride all day and swing down easy as a ballerina. I wanted to dance all night and to sing the blues with my cake and eat it too, deaf to my own true notes. I made a life of wanting, and it was a beautiful thing, locked in the key of E minor. And the second one in the set is called Getting. I wanted literature and disciples. I got shorthand and data entry. I got what I deserved. I got more than I bargained for, though I haggled and wheedled and whined for whatever it was. I got knock knees and a novel. I'll tell you sometime. I got a vocabulary big as Webster, used it 3 times, got to keep it. I could diagram, plot like a paranoid. You got some nerve, they'd say. I do, I do, I do. I got that too. I got smart, smarter, gave it up, but it came back, circled. A cure worse than filing or typing, a switchboard of boredom, too busy to listen. I got sustenance, minimum wage, no more, no less. A car to gas, a house to heat, nylons to run in, children to shoe, and they grew and grew. I got them. I got them. And I learned blueprints and welding and stasis, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, a hole in my stomach as big as a fist, 8 to 5, and return the library books, welded to unfocused wanting, full of regret and rant. I got 2 weeks, a raise a year, merit and mother, the black wag at the end of the ermine's tail. Thank you, Dresser Rand, who laid me off 2 days before my pension was vested. This is from my newest book. It's called Blue Elegies, mostly poems about birds. And this one is called Reading the River. It's hard to predict what the wind will blow before it crosses the state line, massaging the surface into peaks and valleys. It's hard to know about natural things, and unnatural things are worse. Like, why is the name of one thing not the name of another? It's hard to learn our alphabet with permutations, neologisms, acronyms, eponyms, portmanteau words, connotations, denotations, Greek and Latin prefixes, roots, suffixes, all ending in the OED, sitting under Mother Sanskrit's aegis. It's an amazing act, following lines, flipping pages, searching footnotes at the back of the text, or sources in dusty libraries at the end of the world, in editions you can't afford, and all the words pile up like dead leaves along the foundation. It's hard to turn back to the river and listen to the wind drive against the flow, reading white whitecaps in their passionless quest. The river flows wordlessly, a silver glyph flickering in the sun. From above, a cursive analogy only the birds can read. There's another flying Walenda beside the tightrope walker. It's a big family, and these are cousins, and they're trapeze artists. The flying Walendas. They're doing a special show to raise money for those vets who are lost in Nam, and for those who are dying of cancer. This will be their last performance because Angel has had the dread diagnosis herself, and he is still lost. The trapezes hang above the midway, and they make the long climb up the vertical ladders to a platform where they pose in their shiny white sequins, acknowledging the crowd below. Above us, they fly from one to another, catching hands, somersaulting in the air, and all without a net. Below, we watch them as if they were another species, gracefully soaring above the Pennsylvania earth. I wanted to read this one out of town because I have friends who are serious vegans, and they would be really pissed at me. But I've never read it, and I just can't pass up the chance. It's called A Gourmet's Linguistic Analysis of Culture, and it's based on a book of primitive mythology, with apologies to Joseph Campbell. And well, the dirty secret is, and I think the statute of limitations is passed. We used to go hiking up on Rock City Hill, which is just over the ridge there, and we take a bottle of wine and we sit there and have a smoke. And I would get these brilliant ideas. But when we came home and I settled down after a while, I couldn't remember what it was. But they were the secret of life. And it was like, so somebody said, well, take notes. So I had a 3x5 card and a pencil I stuck in my pocket, and I wrote on it, and I wrote 4 words, and I had not a clue what they meant. So I had to write a poem around the words to derive meaning from it. Eat, the first word. Short and sweet. What we do with our food. How we grow, as in you are what you eat. Teat. From whence we drew sustenance. Our first food. Our mother's gift. Meat, the hunter's diet. Notice the force of it. Meat, strong like the hunters, our ancestors. Each his own priest, seeking his own vision, his own meat. Now listen to wheat, soft and whiny, overlong, overprocessed. And look at planter cultures full of human sacrifice and established priesthoods. Beware the vegetarians, my friends. Their history is not good. And on that cheerful note, I'll sign off. Thank you for letting me read that.
Well, Bob is not back. So we will go on to Nancy, and if Bob gets on, then we will go to Bob, and otherwise, I'm sorry, Bob. Okay, Nancy Takacs summers in Apostle Islands National Lakeshore in northern Wisconsin, and in the high desert town of Wellington, Utah in the winter, I guess. She writes about both. During COVID, Nancy became an avid mushroom forager. She's the author of 4 books of poetry and 4 chapbooks. And the latest is Dearest Water, published by Mayapple Press in 2022. And she is a Juniper Prize winner and received the Pushcart Prize, which is a real thing as opposed to being nominated, which isn't so much. So
Thank you, Judy. And thanks for organizing the wonderful retreat. When I read a certain poet, he uses words I haven't thought of, like banshee and chi-chi in his poem about the waning moon. I don't have a woman in my poems waving a spray of pink azaleas as her ex-lover walks home eating the last enchilada. When I wear the long silk skirt of my poems, I'm a woman in the wind, rushing into the ballroom of Walmart for a prescription that will hopefully preserve my heart. Lately, I only write down what happens in my day, like being surprised by a fox, her black feet and smoky tail, disappearing quickly into the ochre brush. I like colors in my poems, maybe because I wore them on my fingers for years, painting scenes for my mother, copying postcards of German castles or the Riviera sent by her wealthy friend. But this poet doesn't write in color. I like his humor, self-deprecation, boldness, and social consciousness. I like how his voice floats like cranberries in a secret bog. He knows something. I keep reading his poems this afternoon while it snows between the hemlocks, and my old Chihuahua's legs move and tremble in a dream, maybe chasing that brilliant red fox. The Warrior Lake Superior. What is the lake like? A bundle of nerves, blushing stanzas at twilight, violet icing at daybreak. It jinxes the sailboats, gallivants without horseshoes, ties its distant music to a biting fly. Where does it like to go? To the secret beach where my dogs chase sticks, to those tall reeds where the redwings treble over their nests, under the dark hulls of oarboats, the maroon gills of whitefish, under the sad loons and the happy gulls. When does it settle? When tugboats forget starboard and port, when cormorants forget to dive for lunch, when I forget my wetsuit for a 2-mile swim. Are you afraid? Who would be afraid of clarity, a sheen like acorn, the vibrato of shadows? Who would be afraid of the very deep? What's in the deep? Ribs of ships, silver spoons, a man and his snowmobile. What does the lake do now? It rinses the anchors from my ankles. Where is your secret beach? Where the lake unfolds its sapphires, gives up its glass. What colors have you found? Greens, clears, one pale blue. I only gather those that have churned for years. I found a prize once, a red one, smooth as the tip of my finger. What bits have you gathered today? A knuckle of cobalt, a clear bottle's base that spells return. The Warrior Mushrooms. What are you doing? Slicing a bolete that doesn't turn blue, turning pages in my guide for photos of the red-capped at my cabin door. What are you thinking? I didn't go out on the water with Jan today, though he said the hours spent on the water adds those hours to our lives. I walked deep into the woods for chanterelles. What did Pam say last night? She and Pierre once skied to a restaurant on a Swiss mountaintop, met a generous chef who gathers mushrooms all year. He created a special dish, lasagna noodles rolled with bechamel and mushrooms, Swiss cheese on top. What kinds of mushrooms? 52 kinds, knowing none of them was dangerous, each with a slightly different ambience. What did the chef say? He told them to eat slowly, to imagine roots under pines, oaks, maples, to savor their various flavors, apricot or almond, brine, earth, slightly bitter flowers. What are you doing now? Listening for the boat. Driving to town for mangoes. I wake up wanting the minty taste of their juice and a road trip to Newfoundland with frozen tundra and sturdy people. I feel this brightness like a blessing and a dirge, or only snow this winter while my friend is dying. Emma runs through drifts and I start the Subaru, waffling from its humble lines to look like Mercury. She licks my hand as we glide out and our wheels grip and spin us over the mute roads toward sweetness. Finding words for my husband. You taste violet in the tang of eggplant. Hum a llama tune in fireweed. See a drowsy halo in my shadow. Eat the turquoise blush of apricots. You know, one tentacle of dance is shimmer. You shake the bees from brambles, speak to them in their own Italian. You greet the shaggy hornets as they drizzle. You like the sandstone choppy, say the desert sounds like tea. You do a saffron step inside a canyon's ruby weave. You like some crackle on a cookie, a collar that unravels, revving wranglers in Ohio. You shave the cedar to a paddle. You save your syllables till dark, then trust your rustling hooves to vault like sassafras and jasper. You taste of butter, dust, and all your cottons I have just peeled. I live in Utah part of the year and have for the last 40 years. Lived here in Wisconsin for over 20 years. This poem is called Utah Garden, and I'm sort of working in my garden and watching the Mormon families walk to church. Hollyhocks rise with their sturdy skirts, like the women who grew up in this desert town, not meaning to go anywhere, but where they must, impossible to uproot. Mother of time creeps on, sage holds one blue leaf, chives thicken. I never liked them, but I gather their violet-scented flowers. My prickly fronds and pods of poppies are the ones raising hell in the stubble along my chain link. I rake sorrel and thistle away from their maze for the coming rain, their flaming crepe, their centers dark and alive as bees. The Warrior Birdsong. What songs do you hear? Comb that whirs and whirs over vinyl. Mint in the julep, mint in the julep, a shiver of buttons. What songs do you hear? Agates falling from a bracelet, loose rusty ribbons, a turtle in the water lilies. What songs do you hear? One long zipper, sapphires in the cigar box, a trill breaking honeycomb. The Warrior houses on the lake. Where does the lake come from? Northern lights, the songs of phoebes, the danger of lilacs. Why does it change? Crows and more crows. What happens in the middle of the night? A bear takes the bird feeder, my cat plays with a whisk broom. What else lives around you? A coyote who followed me home, a young woman who didn't know her for months. She had married a pedophile. What's good about the lake? Scarlet and sepia waves, the way you can go from blossom to thistle, pina colada to vodka on the rocks. Why is it frightening? Sudden waves are frightening when they roll over 6 feet, give up their diamonds. Who wears a bracelet? The warbler stunned after hitting my window, who flew away unharmed. The woman who has a sapphire one. What paintings come from the lake? Agates on lake bottom, a man with sunglasses that mirror blossoms, blue-green abstracts. Where do you go? To the beach to find lake glass, to St. John's Church where women weave rugs all winter. What is frivolous? The gray mansion along the shoreline. Who used to live there? The woman who moved to a cabin, fries eggs now from the free range, eats baguettes with butter, nurtures the fern that waterfalls from her ceiling to her floor. This
One more, Nancy?
Okay, I'll end with this one. It's called Replete. Repletes are storage ants who gather nectar and hold it in a place in their abdomen and hang from the nest ceiling, waiting for the moment when food supply is low, they regurgitate the honey for the others. She loves spring. She swells with use, is luxuriantly codependent. She'll never leave, though dreams of the Pearl River, a Kerry pub, an incandescent motel in Shoshone Falls. Her body is see-through and golden as Sleeping Beauty's first word. Wild pansy, sweet olive live inside her. How can she suspend herself forever, her good friend asks. And won't she need counseling when she's done? What does she think will happen to her blown body afterwards? What apple has she sucked? Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Bob McDonough is a longtime participant in the formerly Saginaw and now Woodstock Writers Retreat. He and Helen are probably the most senior. He has published one book and one chapbook, which will both be for sale at his reading, except that isn't happening. But you can contact him online. After many years teaching English at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Ohio, he now lives in Bridgeport, New York.
First poem, don't cough or sneeze or you'll miss it. Cures. Cure a nightmare by waking to life. Cure life. Look past sleep for that relief. Right before the pandemic, a number of us in central New York, Southern Tier, were invited to write poems about pieces of art in the Corning Museum of Glass. And I got to write on two. This is probably the more successful of them. It's on Evening Dress with Shawl by Karen Lamonte in the Corning Museum of Glass. White dress, white shawl, all of white glass. No one inside. Nakedness is a relief for the clothing. See how it leans back on air, just 2 or 3 inches out of plumb. If the dress had hands, they are held out wide. If the dress had a mouth, it is grinning, belting out a song, the great song of emptiness. May 2020, which I think is a time we all remember and know what we were doing. Most of us will survive, but with what? There have been no maypoles. Maidens do not rejoice in the sun. Lads take what they can from screens. Forsythias and daffodils bloom behind glass, seen from living rooms and cars. TV call-in experts will grudgingly allow lovemaking, but no kissing. Perhaps bags over heads would be good. It snows on Mother's Day, and we try to count the meanings of depression. We're in this apart. Okay, married date, set in Geneva, New York. Why is Christine Lavin playing a free concert in this small city park? To visit her family and have her travel covered. And as a gift to her hometown, that too. Why are we here? Because my wife loves Lavin and I love my wife. Lavin has a song about that. 100 people pull the same cloth lawn chair out of the same sack and think that 50 years ago we would have just sat on the lawn. It's good to be here with so many of our own people we've never known. Christine wants help for her last song. Guys on the stage to sing backup, and my wife nudges me and says, please. So I go. She never says please. Once I'm up there, it's fun and easy. Sensitive new age guy. I can do that. And we all sound good together. After, as I stumble down the steps, Christine's brother grabs my elbow. The way down is harder, but inevitable. A little help always helps. My mother changing my father's dressing. 4 tumors they've taken off his head. They call it cherry picking, my mother told me, buying time. He sits quietly now, head forward. She stands, watching. I can't tell how much he knows. She must do it. Apply the ointment, tape. He must tell her it feels right. 40 years have gone into how they go about this. A heavier poem. Bonnie's daughter's funeral. The wind is not kind, eddying about us, tearing at the royal blue canvas, stretched for brief shelter over the grave, rushing away at random much of the rabbi's hard, sweet words. Many are here as Bonnie and Aaron's friends, not having known Bibi, old enough to have been her parents. We have counted our own children, called them at college, or listened to them breathe in their beds, and now make bold to love what was Bonnie's. Come as we can to lose her daughter with her. Men no longer own black ties, and this must be Bonnie's mother, and Bonnie's hair even now remains a bright flag to life. We will carry our trivial thoughts right to the edge of her grave, but here at least we know them. And it comes as easy as anything can here that the rabbi says Bibi died a pure and perfect rose, now in the hand of God, and always to be with her family, and then rounds hard upon us, telling Bonnie her womb has betrayed her, reminding us all our days are as grass. Left outside this terrible comfort, many of us can scarcely imagine belief. BB is somewhere out of this wind, beyond our guesses and fears. And two more fairly short ones. I've always thought we needed a holiday between Christmas, New Year's, and Easter, spring, whatever. And when James Beard died, I declared a sort of one. The James Beard memorial meal. Perhaps he should have died in spring. We could have had pasta primavera then, or fall, venison and squash. But he died at the bottom of winter. He's been cremated, and the newspaper says he left no survivors. We can't let that be true. Come early and bring a salad. Use red peppers and carrots. He liked color, and you have an eye for it. We'll make beef stew and steam the windows. He taught us to be simple sometimes and plan a garden while the loaves rise. Last one, words for daughter, which by now is words for daughter and granddaughters. Starts with a direct quote from my daughter. Bob, I think when I'm real old, I might say, I'm ready. And then you'll say, let's go. And then we'll die. Katie, age 3.5. Love and work, a good man, children, a few friends, a job that fits your hand and lasts, a tough mind. Take what you want and pay the price. It's easier to leave what you've had than what you've missed. Die knowing we were never meant to live in this world. There is no other. Thank you.